Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another series of TalkSports, or Saturday Sports Special to be exact. And this week, our guest is no other than the returning Ashley Ram Folks. Mr. Folks was on the program a few weeks ago, and he had quite a lot to say. And then he was also invited, by the way, he was invited to return to the program to clear up some issues. In fact, there were a number of issues we did not get to finish with. And then there were some other issues that he wanted to speak about. And then there were some reactions and allegations and what have you. And I personally had invited Mr. Folks to be back on the program, but it's just a matter of scheduling him into that slot. And I decided that at least I will try to have him before the end of October, because we didn't want those things to slide by, and then we will start fresh in November with a series of new programs. So I want to invite once again Mr. Ashley Ram Folks. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Folks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you going?
I'm okay. As I said before, hiding from COVID. Looking forward to returning home.
Right. That's good to know. So we have, as we indicated, we have quite a lot to talk about. And first off, I must say that the issues regarding to the recent developments, even with the Trinidad Tobago Football Association, you yourself, when you were president of the Grenada Football Association, you had a similar thing, although it didn't go as the TTFA in terms of the local courts and all of that. But now that all of that had happened, it's interesting to hear your perspective, and especially seeing that you had your personal experience. And then I know we touched a bit on your involvement in the October 1983, but again, we hear a lot of things keep coming up again. And, at this time of the year, so much is being said, etc., etc. And then following the program, there were a series of, comments up and about certain comments you made. And then there were reactions, there were allegations, whatever. And some of these things, obviously, you will need to react to, clear up, and things like that. So Mr. Folk, first off, let's head over to Trinidad and Tobago. Football is still dear to you, and it's sad we saw what happened with the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. At one point in time, we probably thought that, hey, at last FIFA is really getting, some punches. But unfortunately, there was this brouhaha in terms of the local courts, the appeal courts. And then we see only recently, we reading now that there's some friction between the local magistrate or the local judge and the appeal judge, and all that has been going on, some contentious issues. So it seems as if there's some personalities within the judiciary itself that would have affected the decision.
In relation to FIFA and world football, especially obviously Caribbean or small islands football, they are dictatorial, they are unfair, and very, very autocratic. So with the Trinidad Football Association trying to stand up and go to the local courts, this organization, I will call a mafia organization named FIFA, can buy out anybody. It is not surprising, I'm hearing it for the first time, that there is differences between the judiciary in Trinidad. It doesn't surprise me, because FIFA has that kind of money to buy out anybody. I'm not saying for one moment they have bought out Tom or Dick, but the Trinidad Football Association that went to the local court, at the end of the day, what the administrators are talking about, the outgoing up, and I call them outgoing because they'll go. The biggest thing about Trinidad, they want to play football. Everybody wants to play football. All what FIFA would do is say, look, Trinidad and Tobago is an outcast. And if Trinidad and Tobago cannot play international football, then the leadership of the TTFA would have to go, because at the end of the day, not only the players, not only the clubs, the nation want to play against Jamaica, the United States, whoever. They want to play. And FIFA would just say, you can't play in my competition. At the end of the day, that is what happens. The competition is theirs. And they could say who playing and who not playing. You mentioned earlier that I did not go as far as the court. I did not go as far as the court, even though I know what we are doing was honest. And it's simply because I know I couldn't win. And my family told me at the time, Ashley, don't bother go through that. You don't need it. That's how they put it. You don't need it. Why do you go bantering? But I'm the kind of person who, when I believe I'm right, I try to be fair in all my life. Everything I do, I try to be honest. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm not afraid of anything. So therefore, I don't have to lie. And I thought what I was doing for the Football Association was fair. And not only fair, we were getting results. As a matter of fact, when Jack Warner and his gang tried to isolate Grenada, we were in the Shell Cup or Caribbean Cup final. We were about to play Jamaica and they stopped giving funds, assistance. So it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, prepare the team, send the team abroad, pay salaries to the staff. I did all that. And then again, my family said, well, Ram, what you trying? Are you going to achieve? At the end of the day, you're going to lose. Now, Jack Warner and his gang set up at the time election of no confidence. And I won them. Yeah, they didn't get through that route. They got, unfortunately, Cheney, who is now president, Boodoo, who is my very good friend, because I don't vex with people when they take positions like that. And a number of them, nice? You would have Jester Noel and people like that stood up with me. A few people stood up with me. Bernardine Andrews stood up with me. A few people stood up with me. But the gang, Warner, Jack Warner, showed them power, and they went his side. But I won the vote. So then Jack Warner went to Argentina to some meeting, and FIFA removed me from office when they could not remove me by the vote. It just shows how autocratic these people are. So the Trinidad Football Association, maybe I could tell them one or two, they're going to lose. And when I say lose, it's not a fair loss. At the end of the day, the players, the clubs, everybody will say, look, you know what? Bottom line, we want to play football. And we don't want to play Tobago and Trinidad versus Grenada. And then you would not able to play any, for instance, if Grenada at this point wants to play Trinidad a practice game, FIFA could ban Grenada too. So Grenada don't want to go into that. This is what they have. They have a monopoly on world football. So I think Trinidad Football Association, the executive would eventually have to do what I have done, or I did, and just walk away.
But what kind of message you think it's sending to the other football administrators especially in the Caribbean?
Especially in the Caribbean, because even before I went, I must say something about the one they call Jack Warner. Jack Warner now can travel anyway because he was corrupt. But do not underestimate Jack Warner, an extremely intelligent, smart man. Is somebody that I admire a lot. And you have to give him, as a black man, I went to congresses and I saw how he managed himself and managed the smaller islands. Nonetheless, he seemed as though he was a thief. But as a person, as a smart person, I've said it before, maybe on this thing, where I've sat in meetings with Jack, and the gentleman not taking any notes, but you better believe, he will touch on every topic you have spoken about. Very intelligent man. Unfortunately, this is FIFA that's saying it. You don't always believe. He outsmarts FIFA in a lot of ways. But I think I know the Trinidad Football Association would have to give in, or else the Trinidad would be banned from all football, and whoever tried to play with them, practice game or otherwise, would also suffer the same fate, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the Caribbean itself has had its run-ins with FIFA, because not just Jack Warner, because after Jack there was Jeff Webb, for example, Jeffrey Webb, And then there was a series of others who received some level of either ban, well, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, lifetime ban. But the Caribbean in particular seems to be running afoul with FIFA. And since we would say probably the Jack Warner empire fell, since then we have seen that steady, what do you say, shaking, of football administrators in the region. Is something wrong with our football administrators in the Caribbean?
Watch, I am presently in the United States, and the election is about to finish. And when you watch the things that people tolerate, especially from when you watch the President Donald Trump on a campaign, talking about the coronavirus, and it is going away, it is not bad, it is that. And people believe. People believe. I answer it in that way that I'm saying my Caribbean people are different. We would generally call a spade, and we would not follow the flow. Just so. So I put FIFA. Listen to how I would put FIFA. Mr. Tom Jones, whether he inherited, whether he didn't buy it, an estate. And on that estate, he has a playing field, big playing field. The residents around the estate do not have access to a playing field. So the owner of that estate, he has the playing field. And he could say who could play on the field and who cannot play. That is FIFA. That is because a resident who stands up for what he thinks is right cannot play on the playing field, and he has no other way to play. This is what Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time cannot play a practice match with Grenada. Cannot. FIFA would ban Grenada, and Grenada wants to play on the playing field. They want to have access to the playing field. Trinidad doesn't have access at this point. When we were going through it, when I was president, it was a similar situation. We could not have played Trinidad. Trinidad would have been banned. So I think that is the situation with FIFA. And every now and again, they ban somebody in FIFA because of corruption. It is one of the most corrupt organizations you'll find anywhere in the world. You talk about mafia. Mafia is an understatement to FIFA.
Okay, well, let's wait and see, Mr. Fox. But let's move on to some important issues that you wanted to discuss, and then we can always get back to this. The CFU, CONCACAF, FIFA, and all the football administration. But on the program, when you were on the program, after the program, there were some comments that were made, and I think you got wind of the comments. In fact, even before sharing it with you, I think you happened to see some of the comments. Without going into all the details, what's your reaction regarding those allegations of corruption made against you, Mr. Fox?
I don't think I saw much of corruption against me because I am an open book. I call a spade by no other name. If I know it by a spade, I call it so. Unfortunately, my family told me, my family and friends, Ram, don't go back on this Bascom program, because every time you open your mouth on a Bascom program, there are some people who might not be necessarily against Ram folks, because what Ram folks have? Nothing. But political agenda. Everybody knows my politics. Everybody knows my politics. And those who disagree with the politics also disagree with Ram. What bothers me, I used to be buying a newspaper. I read it. I like reading. I read a lot. I want to find out. If I know that person who that amount of lies put out about Ram, things I don't know about, things like, for instance, Ram folks was criticizing over Chua Gary because he was a Garyite. I laugh. I had to laugh because I remember my friend Roy St. John, a good human being, nice person, good one. But he was a minister in the Gary government. And at that time, Black Power raging in the 70s. And I was the biggest Black Power around. The biggest anti-Gary around. So he banned me from playing football with braided hair. I used to, when I had hair, I braid my hair because we were Black Power. Me, the blunt, this one, the that one. You know, and I was banned from playing football. So every time I had to go and play, I had long hair. I had to unplait my hair because Gary didn't want any Black Power anywhere around. They would have brought a case against me and some others for police this and police that. And I had Morris as my the person to defend me. The police never came. When we went to court, the police never came.
That's so, Morris Bishop, right? Morris Bishop you're speaking about, right?
Yeah, Morris Bishop. Morris.
Okay, yeah.
When I came and I hearing that Ram was a Gariite in point criticizing the overthrow, and Ram went to Cuba because Ousu's his friend. You know, I'm not in that. If you hate the revolution, I'm very sorry. Funny enough, somebody who hate the revolution, I will listen to them. I love it. I love every aspect of what transpired and the way it, quote unquote, liberated Grenada. Guys, if you don't like it, I don't think someone who is anti-revolution, I don't hate them. They have a view. They would have reasons. I will sit down and listen to them. I have some good friends who are. But to come and lie on people, total lie. You know, I asked one question. How could I have been a Gariite and within days, within hours of the revolution, I was in the operations room? Also put me in the operations room. Well, that means the revolution failed. If a friend could put a friend in the operations room, something had to be wrong. I was operating in the operations room, doing all the calls, taking the calls, advising and whatnot and whatnot. So I say all that. I don't want to go into it, but I say all that because it is not fair. It is not, how should I call it? I'm trying to get some words that somebody who is in the media could be putting out blatant lies like that. I advise people, watch what you're reading. No, I would not buy another of that newspaper because I look for information in a newspaper, you know, and if the information about me is that among the lies, then I tend to see it. That's about, I saw my friend Tillman Thomas had to dispute some lies they put out against him. And that all those things was to get against somebody else. But Tillman was man enough, he's my very, very good friend, you know, to say, no, that is not the truth. I didn't want to reach that far to give it energy. I could have come out after and say Bascom so and so and go on the media or go on the thing and say they are lies. I didn't want to give it energy. I honestly didn't want to give it energy. I was so, you know, what.
But do you think these well, allegations and quite a number of things you said were identified as, and as you indicating them one by one as lies, but do you think they are of political nature?
I don't know. First of all, there are few people that will hate Ashley Ram folks for how I look, what I did, what I didn't do, except according to the revolution. And I just want to go on this one now. I saw, it's like a son of mine, Joel. Nice, he played for Fontenoy United, and anybody who plays for Fontenoy United, I'm the senior man on the block. And I take them in as young people trying to do this or trying to do that. In a lot of instances, as I've said, and I'll start doing it again, try to get better education for them. I've spoken to Dr. Glean on that one already. And when I come back, this is what the direction in which I'm going. And Joel is my good boy. But whatever Joel would have stumbled upon and found what he called bones, maybe it's bones. I had to write a few friends on that. The first thing he could assume, these are bones from 1983. When the person, my friend, wrote me, I say, these are bones from 1983. I say, but Jesus Christ, how people could be like that? In 1983, you could have all that bones and the ground was not disturbed. I said, digging a yam or even a potato, you disturb the soil that it takes over a year to consolidate. So in that wide expanse of place, if you, let's say we in the revolution would have buried people there. I don't know where this amount of people come out to start with. The Americans came in days after, and didn't see the disturbed soil. And when you look at the photo that was displayed, these bones were down there. When I say down, the depth would have been quite deep. It's the sea that exposed them. But the top of the soil was solid. You go to any graveyard, and you could differentiate. You didn't see anybody buried here, but you could differentiate a grave that was 5 years old and a grave that was 5 months old. And now we're not talking about months, we're talking about days. So the Americans came in and people were around, but they didn't see the disturbed soil. So you come umpteen years later and say, it's the revolution. You know what bothers me about, and I mean, Joel is my good boy. It seems as though for some people, all that was wrong in Grenada started in March 1979 and ended in October 1983. But that is a period, as I've always said, I respect a lot and identify with it.
Yeah, Mr. Folks, I think we are back. We just had a little technical glitch there. I don't know what went wrong. But
sometimes technology.
Yeah, we are back now. So you were making that point about the bones there.
About the
bones.
Yeah, the point I was making, I was disappointed. As I said, okay, I mean, Joel is like my boy, my son. But I thought, I don't want to say, you know, things that is unfavorable to him, but I thought it was one where it was somewhat malicious to believe, even to believe. I don't think he believed that bone was from 1983. I don't know where I got cut off, so I'll just repeat some of it. I'm saying
where the Americans arrived and just days after, and you said that
Americans arrived days after.
Mm-hmm.
I guess all true blew all over. So I am saying, I said and I'm saying again, that if you dig a potato, a yam, the soil would be disturbed, and you would see where that hole was dug. For that wide expanse of bones, it looks like 10 feet, 8 feet down or whatever. It could not have been hidden from the invaders. So the solidity of the top of the soil, you know, it is basically evidence that this thing was there quite a while ago. And the point I make, I don't know if you heard it, that you go in a graveyard, any graveyard, you just come from America, and you go in a graveyard, you can identify, I'm not talking about concrete grave now, you can identify a grave that was there for 5 years from one that was there for 5 months. And we're not talking about 5 months, we're talking about days, 7 days, 8 days. You follow? We're talking about that. So had it been done in 1983, it was been conspicuous for years. It was not conspicuous because the ground was solid. The Americans didn't see it. You didn't see it. Nobody didn't see it. And you come how much, 30 something years after and saying it could have been 1983.
But don't you think that we do have some comments I want to go to regarding to previous issue regarding Gary, etc. But don't you think that the whole confusion is being created because there has not been any clarity as to what has happened to the remains of those of October 1983? Yes, it's mentioned about True Blue. Then there was the issue of Calavini. All these, different scenarios being given over the years have created this sort of confusion. So even if somebody, for some reason, have a similar findings, probably in Point Saline, they may say the same thing as to the remains 1983.
Okay. When we look at 1983, the unfortunate things about 1983, I would ask one question: how many bodies are unaccounted for? Nice. And very likely it would have been the people on the fort. And the question is, how many? Morris Jackie, how many of those people? But it is said over and over that the Americans took the remains, whether we want to believe it or not. But let me assume the Americans didn't take the remains and go with it. Nice. I believe the Americans took the remains because the Americans are no fool. If you leave Morris Bishop remains in Grenada and do a grave, is an annual thing of resurrection or whatever, nice. Technically, they have gone with the remains. And in going with the remains, I think it was to silence Grenadians. But at the same time, how many people would have been missing to among the bones? But I'm not going to so much the numbers. I'm basically still saying on the solidity of the soil. And if it was in 1983, you dig a potato, you will see that this thing was disturbed, the soil was disturbed. If the Americans didn't find any disturbed soil in that area, it bothers me. And it's something I don't want to stay on because I really find it's outrageous.
Okay, let's go to some of the comments now. Margaret Francis is saying, but even if you were a Garyite, that was your right, and it was also your right to change your support from Gary and support someone else. Whatever happened to the individual right to have an opinion and to change that opinion for whatever reason. And she goes on to say that, I honestly don't get why you folks believe that, you need to apologize or offer an explanation for your personal beliefs. I mean, seriously. That's Margaret making those comments. Mr. Fox, when we last spoke, and we'll get back to football.
Let me just comment on that comment. All right. Mm-hmm. I agree and respect that comment quite a bit. As a matter of fact, thanks for the comment. I would go further to say when I was growing up, could have been 60s, thereabout, early 70s. I couldn't vote at the time. But if I could have voted in early 60s, Gary versus GMP, I would have voted for Gary. But I couldn't vote. I was no Garyite. But the GMP was a tongue group, as far as I'm concerned, in growing up. The GMP was this kind of tongue group, and Gary was for the ordinary folks. That is the way I saw it as a child. Approaching in the late 60s and 70s, when the Black Power was sweeping America and sweeping the world, and we the Caribbean embrace it, there was that situation where you asked me, Gary and his Green Beasts saw Black Power as a threat, and unfortunately tried to use force to subdue a phenomenon that was literally worldwide. The English-speaking world was consumed by the Black Power Rebellion, and we here, who at that time admired Black Americans more than anything else, we were in the Black Power movement. So, as I said, I was at the heart of the Black Power movement. I tend to thought as a Black man, and especially as I said in my last thing, what I went through, going to school, the denials and whatnot, I wanted an opportunity to liberate from that kind of class. And that is why I joined the revolution also. So I'm saying at that time, it was one where it's not being a Garyite is a sin. No, I'm not saying that, because my mother was never one, never a Garyite. But as I said, in the 60s, I couldn't vote, but Gary was a better preference to the GNP.
Okay, I have to laugh because Torres said I too I would have voted Uncle Gary and the GLP. But the before we go back to the issue of the football, within the past weeks, or probably 2 weeks, or even a week, there has been an issue, and it relates to your home village of Fontenoy. We had the issue of Chris Regis, that's the swimming coach, the former national swimmer and our coach, being shot. And then of recent, as within the last, I think, 24 hours, his father was shot, and I think he subsequently died. And I recall when we were speaking in some weeks ago, you made mention of some of the issues in the village of Fontenoy, and I think you personally know the Regis, okay? How, I mean, you're not in Grenada at this point in time, but if you were in Grenada, what role would you have played, seeing as you have played previous roles when they had the issue between, I think, Fontenoy, Grand Mall, Happy Hill, and all the issues we had back then a couple of years ago?
I'm not God, but I'm convinced if I was home, at least Mr. Regis might have been alive today. You know, I'm convinced on that. And the reason I'm saying that, the Regises, they live the closest, in a crowded village, Fontenoy. They are my closest proximity neighbors. I can stay in my house, in a veranda in my house, and speak to the Regis in their house without shouting. It is not only proximity, it is how close we are to each other. Mr. Regis, T.C. Regis, whenever he go fishing and catch fish, we don't have to buy, whether it's fresh fish, corn fish, whichever. Chris Regis, I am the person who would have gone to the church with him when he was baptized. I am his godfather. It's to show you how close we are as a family, not just in proximity. Yes, I'm Chris' godfather. And what I'm saying is that after I heard of it, I called, the mother was in PT Martinique at the time. She's from there, and she was nursing her sick mother. And I spoke to Trevor. I spoke to Thibault. And we agreed that the way forward would be legal action, whatnot. There are things that you cannot undo. Legal action might just be the next step. And I know for sure I would have been right there with the family. Let's take, for instance, Chris is in hospital on a Sunday or whatever day. If you go in hospital, his grandmother would have been bringing him to hospital. Nice? Make the burden a bit easier. And without I being there, Trevor, the father, is a very strong man. Yeah? Very strong, mentally strong man. I'll tell you how strong this guy is, or was. Some years ago, maybe 5, 6, how many years ago, one of his sons went fishing. It's a fishing village, and he himself is a fisherman. It's a very skilled fisherman. And fishing in the village sometimes entails going where we call in the ocean. We just call it, when you're sometimes you're going and you're losing sight of Grenada. Fishing flying fish and dolphins and toujon and them kind of thing like that. So his son went fishing. And after 24 hours, the son and 2 others went fishing. The son didn't return. So the matter was reported to the police, the Coast Guard, and the next 24 hours, which would make it 48, This Coast Guard went, search and search and search. And the Coast Guard came back and they said, unfortunately, we didn't find them. So that's it. You'll never believe. That same Trevor is to show the strength of character of the guy. He said, I'm not leaving my son outside there. He took the necessary storage, gas and food, and got a boat, he was a fisherman, and went out by himself. Him and him alone. A day or two after, he come back with his son. The three people in the boat, what was said, a big boat, obviously one of them steamship, would have passed so close to the boat and swamp, when you say swamp, it means it turned over. The boat was turned over. Of the three, one of the occupants died. Literally gave up after holding on and holding on. And the son, his son and the other guy were rescued by Trevor. It was like a miracle. After 4 or 5 days, 4, 5, 6 days, he came back with his son and the other person. It should show you the strength of character. The Coast Guard with big engines and whatnot, and telescopic this and telescopic that, tell you the scope throughout, and there was no signs. But then again, he's one who knows the ocean or knew the ocean and would know where the guys would have gone fishing, and based on the tide, in what direction they would be drifting. But he brought back his son. And I think that is the same character, that is the same will that disturbed him so much about this son. When I spoke to him, as I said, I told him, look, we're going to take the legal side to this matter, and so and so, so and so. But I honestly believe what has happened lately, I thought mentally, when I read what has happened, I thought he tripped off mentally. And then he would have need somebody speaking to him. But, how many people could speak to him? Because he has a very strong personality. He and I are just very, 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 very close. I remember just before I came, we went up in the mountains. He had some lands in the mountains, and we went up in the mountains and look at the lands, and this one is for that one, and that one is for that one. There's not many people he would listen to. He listened to me, I listened to him. We were very, very close as a family.
Yeah. Here we go with Lincoln Torre, Deputy.
Let me just go back before I got knowledge that he was stripped, based on the fact that it's not just the police he attacked. He allegedly attacked other people on his way to doing the police that. When I heard it, that Trevor attacked the police and got shot, despite the fact I heard got shot, I was most disturbed by attacking a female officer. I said, but Trevor, we cannot, that's how I said it. I told my family up here. I said, we cannot do it like America. A police is a police. You would have good people and I wouldn't say bad people, loose people in any organization. And there is no way I could have condoned attacking a police because another police would have done you that. Maybe the police, I still maintain that the first instance with shooting his son, that was excessive force, if it was not cold-blooded force. The details will show in the investigation, but that was excessive force. And not every police, man or woman in the force would use excessive force. There are good people in the police force. And when I heard about as I said, the shooting, without knowing that that maybe he was deranged, my wishes for speedy recovery went more to the female officer than anybody else. A female officer on the street, if the police doesn't know it, have has to be accompanied by a strong male officer. When I see a female officer on the desk, the police desk, whether I go to the fire station or wherever I go, it's kind of normal to me. But when I see a female officer on the street, I have my guard up because I will protect her with my life. We have to, it's just like how a female cannot run 100 meters as quick as Bolt or any one of the top men. We have to accept as a female officer, a female, there are not weaknesses. We are not built the same.
Certain limitations then.
So there are certain limitations. Yeah. And I respect female officers on the road more than anything else. When I see a female officer on the road, I'm also an officer. And I will defend them with my life at that time. You know, there is something about female police officer or military people that I feel that they need the help. And I'm saying to the police force or whoever that when you put a female officer on the road, remember, all them, most of the bad men, I've been in jail. And when you go in the female department, you have 4 prisoners. You have 3 prisoners, 5 prisoners. The most it's ever reached while I was there might have been 6 or 8. When you go in the male, you have 500 and something. So the aspect of crime, when you look the differentiation between crime and thing, you know, it's chalk and cheese. So against that background, when you put a female officer on the road, I'm not saying they should not be on the road. They have to be on the road. It is very likely they're coming up against men. Very, very, very likely. If you look at the statistics, find out how many women have been arrested on the road. It's men. So that female officer has to be accompanied by strong men, and not just physically strong, mentally strong, because I want my female officers to be protected at all times.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to the, well, Toro was saying that we are paradoxical people. Many supported Black Power and were involved in every African Liberation Day celebrations. Yet, some of the same opposed an independent Grenada under Gary because they thought he was too black to be their leader. Mr. Fox, back to football. And there's an issue that I wanted us to talk about regarding our last conversation, and it had to do with the number of affiliations when it comes to football. The GFA is affiliated to FIFA, even though it might be dysfunctional at times. Affiliated to CFU, affiliated to CONCACAF, affiliated to FIFA. It's probably the only sport in the Caribbean and probably the world with so many affiliations. Do you really think it's worthwhile being affiliated to all these subgroupings and FIFA as well?
I'll answer that in a while. I'm just going back to Toro. I understand Toro and I understand him well. Toro come from a family, as you'll call it, black, in tongue, Karanaj. And I know growing up as a child, he would have faced what I face in point, not in point, from tongue people. The subtle discrimination. If you were mulatto and fair skin, you could pass. When you're black, you stay back. So I understand that, you know. I do understand that quite a bit. As far as the aspect of FIFA and these little organizations, a little split this and split that, at the end of the day, these world organizations are in co. It's a setup that they are in co, and you better follow the line. How you are not to take away your independence. Yes, colonialism didn't give you independence, and then they give you something and they say independence. How much are we independent when you have to depend on them, whether it's trade, whether it's what, whether they make all the rules? They still make all the rules. So the people who govern the Caribbean, the respective prime ministers and governors or whoever in the Caribbean, they fall within an ambit of where they had to be obedient, where they have to be obedient. The flexibility is not too much because we are dependent on the world. We cannot be, quote unquote, economically and otherwise, that so-called independent. I mean, if you have oil and whatnot, if they're not buying your oil, or like Trinidad. If OPEC say, look, I don't want your oil, and they could do without Trinidad oil, they could have Trinidad on their knees. So this is the situation that how the world goes is, quote unquote, extremely unfair.
But do you think there is really a need for, I mean, when we look at it now, the setup and the structure, even a CFU, for example, Caribbean Football Union?
When you look at the breakdown, you do not want North America, the United States and Canada to be just calling the shots for you. So therefore, you have a breakdown of CFU. They are not in CFU. So then we could sit and make decisions on our own and go to CONCACAF that would involve North America and Central America and collectively bargain. In the absence of that, Grenada might have gone to that meeting different from St. Vincent. At CFU level, we will differ. But when there is a consensus, we go to CONCACAF meeting as a united front. And it's the best thing. As I said, at the end of the day, FIFA owns the estate and say who playing on their playing field. But there are certain things that when it doesn't affect FIFA, you can get, quote unquote, a share by being united under CFU.
Mm-hmm. When we last met, Mr. Folks, I think we were getting ready for some football. Since then, I think we have played some football, and I'm talking about locally, played some football. We getting in now to the I think it was a Pure Cup. Then we have the annual Wagiti competition. I think that should be starting, if not this weekend. But what's your take in terms of getting football back? If you were the president of the Grenada Football Association, barring all that's going on, all the challenges being faced, what would you have done to ensure that football is back on the agenda?
What would I have done to say football was not on the agenda?
No, to make sure that football is on the agenda. Playing football throughout. Yeah, playing football throughout. Because right now, as it is, it's mainly contained to the national stadium. Okay, and I guess how much they want to ensure that they follow in all the protocols, etc. But you know, some may argue that the folks in St. Andrew, the folks in St. Patrick may be, being robbed out of some of the action. What would you have done to ensure that football is played throughout?
All right. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the government for their stance, their protocol, the way they have handled the coronavirus. I would say they have saved lives. They make people much more conscious than what Trump is doing in this America of how to avoid getting infected. I really want to congratulate the government. And I say so because I'll answer your question by saying, whatever decision I would have taken would have been in conjunction with what the government is doing. The protocols laid out by the government, I would not have gone contrary to a single one. And I don't think this present association is going contrary. But I want to appeal to every Grenadian that this is a serious thing, because I'm in America, and when you hear the daily score when my friend is saying it is going away, it is going away, and then you wake up in the morning and you hear thousands infected and died again, you want to know who is crazy. So I would have been hand in gloves with the medical people in Grenada and whatever the government is doing. And not because the Prime Minister is my friend, no. It's because whatever they are doing seems to be working. And if they say no gathering over 20, then I would not do a football game where there's going to be a gathering over 20. I want to compliment Grenadians for being united on that front. I haven't heard yet people with political differences taking different sides, like what you're seeing in America. The Trump people don't wear masks, the Biden people wear masks, and madness, it is madness. So I would say that I congratulate Grenada for how they are fighting the coronavirus, and I would have fell in line with that protocol. Whatever the government says, based on the medical, the scientific data that they have, they've been fed with around folks administration, like what is happening now with Achenion. I think he is following the protocol. And I want to congratulate everybody who is following it.
But how much of a disadvantage you think our local team is or will be having going into 2021, where we're expected to be engaged in a number of regional and international competitions? I say that to say that we are hearing the likes of Jamaica and others preparing themselves in terms of international friendlies, even though it's not in Jamaica. Apparently, it's taking place in other countries that may be considered safe havens. Obviously, they will have this advantage. What's about Grenada? What would you have done to ensure that our national team, in preparation for probably the Gold Cup and other international, particularly the Gold Cup, I should say, because I think that is on the radar, is ready, football ready, competition ready for 2021?
As far as readiness is concerned, it's all well and good for Grenada or any country for that matter to train and be prepared. The problem is playing someone from another country who is not either conscious or not taking COVID seriously. The problem would be playing against a team like that. For instance, St. Vincent. St. Vincent management of COVID is not different from the United States. That cavalier, so what? I would advise Grenada and the Grenada Football Association strongly, do not play a single practice match with St. Vincent, whether you go in there or they coming by you, because they are not respecting the protocol as we are. And we don't want people coming, and I'm sorry to say for those, we have so many Vinces at home. But Gonzalez's protocol is closer to Trump than anybody else on. So at this time, international games, I would not have ventured into international games. I would not have ventured into international games. Mm-hmm. If it is mandatory, then we'll have to do everything according to the protocol in order to facilitate it. But I will hope that the CFU does not make those games at this point mandatory. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. But I understand that point. But I'm looking at the bigger picture in terms of Grenada's preparation and competition ready for 2021. What would you have done? I mean, let's barring the St. Vincent, etc., in terms of getting the team ready.
Well, as we in Grenada are fortunate that we don't have many cases, we follow the protocol and train as much as and as hard as possible, preparing, because we do not know, especially in the Caribbean, what the curve would be in 2021. In the United States, it's continued to rise. But even in China, it is falling. So we do not know if the curve will go down or up. But because there is a scheduled tournament in 2021, we have to prepare for it. When 2021 reaches, then we would know, according to the COVID situation, whether we could or we can't.
Yeah, and especially with the United States staging most of the matches, there's some level of uncertainty.
Can you imagine Florida?
Yeah,
you're going to Florida. Come on. Yeah. So we'll just have to prepare. Is most important. I would advise the president. We do extremely well. I would advise the president to prepare the team. But when the time reaches for competition, you look at what is happening in America, what is happening in Florida. And then we would know if we can expose our children to that environment.
Mm-hmm. And I hope you don't mind me moving from the football back to the issue again, because I think it's very important. Yeah, Clev made two important points there that I think I should share with you and the viewers, and also for your comment. I will put the first one up. Out of this tragedy, I hope we can find a way of diffusing situations such as this. This is a festering underlying problem we must address vigorously and urgently, that of the mental health state of our people when trauma visits. As a former social worker with New York City, I know the importance of intervention, not to pacify, but to demonstrate empathy to diffuse lingering bitterness. Mr. Folks, and for someone like you who residing here in the United States, especially in Brooklyn and in New York, obviously you would have been, you would have experienced, whether it's, on the streets or even in the regular news, issues of, mental cases.
When you look at the report you would have sent on Trevor, this was a situation of a mental case. And that is why I said, had I been there, I believe I could have bring that quote unquote satisfaction to some extent. Because as I said, Chris is my godson. And being there, going to the doctor with him, somebody speaking to him, and just being there, I don't think he would have tripped. I want to believe, I hope he would not have tripped. And there are a lot of people, because of economic situation now, some people cannot work because of the virus. It's going to get to them. There is a situation of food on the table. And we in Grenada is a place of God in my life. I love Grenada. I don't think we have enough sufficient empathy for people with mental disorder. We say they're plain crazy. You follow? And we used to have Carlton House. I don't know where we have now. We're supposed to be, as citizens, identify people with that situation and try to help them as soon as possible before they quote unquote go overboard, And I don't think we have enough empathy for people who have that problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I think he went on to another point now, Mr. Folks, hence the reason I dismissed the country versus tongue myth, understanding how discriminatory that mindset was against us from the Wharf, River Road, Happy Hill, Fontenoy Springs, Woburn, etc. The terrace made Tantine acceptable by name only and to a certain boundary line. I think it's a very tricky part, and that's why he put the terrace in open and close, inverted. It made Tantine acceptable by name only and to a certain boundary line. But yes, I think the point is being made there, and you raised the issue there earlier, yourself and Tora, discussing the country versus tongue myth, and to some extent, they consider the Wharf, River Road, Appeal, Fontenoy Springs, Woburn, these places as probably, quote unquote, the country part of town.
Well, he says he doesn't agree and it is a myth. Do you want to explain it to me, what he means?
No, he's actually dismissing. He's dismissing the country town
as a myth.
No, it's dismissing the country town myth, right? He says, hence the reason I dismiss the country versus town myth, understanding how discriminatory that mindset was against the folks who were from, as he said, the Wharf. Yeah, I think it's clear now. Yeah.
No. The English need a little polishing up. When I read it, I drew back and I said, he calling that a myth?
No, he's dismissing.
But then I realized what he was saying, that was really a myth in itself, because we are one people. And I endorse and agree with him. It's funny. There are things that I shouldn't say. There were a lot of mulatto type people living in town, and the Depredine and them would have been facing literally the same discrimination that I was facing. It seems as though, because as I said, there were a lot of residential occupants in the town itself of St. George's. There was quite a few in the 60s. And as you come out within a certain radius, I don't know if it's a 1 mile or 2 mile or 10 mile radius, as I said before, you were wild and stupid. So I was one who was very wild and stupid because of where I lived. And I thought also is my color. Say what you want. Between the 60s and now, people of my color, and I hate to use that in the Caribbean, but then it was an issue, have been very liberated. We were, like me, for instance, I was on a two-prong attack. Two-prong attack because I didn't live inside the radius, and I was a black person. And that made a difference. As I said earlier, and I don't like to repeat, not this time, the bank, the face of the bank, any of those banks in town, don't let it hold you with that. They had a mulatto face in the front desk in the 60s. Oh, yes. So these are things that it is in the archive of history that we don't want to see anymore, and it is not there. We have a prime minister now who I do not think anybody vote for him because he black or he white or he whatnot, and that is so nice. Nice. In America, they haven't reached our level as yet. So Biden has to take someone of color to try to win votes of color. And Trump don't care. But we have passed that stage that irrespective of your color, irrespective, if you are a good person and they feel this is the best person, then they will vote for you. America still, in some instances, voting according to color. Trump and the Proud Boys would not vote for Democrats because they have a black person on the card. You know, America is still there. America is still at that level. We have gone past that a long time.
Mm-hmm. Returning to the issue of the social work and social, well, Clev made, as he indicated, as a former social worker in New York City, and I explained to you that something that we are seeing probably on a day-to-day basis here in New York, and we're seeing how it's affecting our society in Grenada. Do you think there is need for more social workers in Grenada? And you, as you mentioned earlier too, that you know, we just you know, throw a blind eye on the issue of one's mental you know, mental disabilities, as I would say, and as you indicated, you would just say that person is playing crazy, you know. But dealing with the whole issue of mental illness, I should say, okay. do you think that there is need for more social workers in Grenada, and especially at the school level? Because I think some years ago we had the issue with whether it was a Boca Secondary School, a Happy Secondary School, and we understood eventually that it was issues of mental disease.
Yes, I believe that more attention should be paid to people, quote unquote, mental illness. People are what we will call not normal, like we like to say that. They would need help, but oftentimes we basically discard them. It's unfortunate, but oftentimes we basically discard them, especially the children. The teacher should identify. If the parents would not, the teacher should identify. And the teachers are the ones, to a great extent. The social worker would not think about it. The social worker would not be so much in contact with children. The parent and the teacher have to be the social worker in that case. But yes, still, I am saying that there should be more social workers. All social workers should be doing their jobs. We see someone eating out of a garbage pan or doing something abnormal in tongue, and we just say, he crazy, man, he playing crazy. And nothing, absolutely nothing is done or reported that there is this guy in Melvin Street, he's eating out of a garbage pan. I think so and so, so and so, so and so. Or you try to find out more of him so we can get help for him or her. No, we don't care about that. I wouldn't say we don't care. We don't pay attention to that. And is that what you are asking? And I really believe if more social workers would do it, but the question would remain, is it more or more attention? Are the number of social workers adequate, but they are not paying enough attention, or we need more social workers? Whatever has to be done to address that situation, I think should be, because mental illness, people could recover from mental illness. I have seen someone who suffered from mental illness in the early 60s, and she was placed in the mental home and never came out. Spend the rest of her life, nice young girl, spend the rest of her life there. Whatever happened or didn't happen, But I really believe, I really hope that we can address that situation in a way that it is not addressed at this point in time. In a more scientific way, we should.
And we have seen how it has also affected the sports community. For someone like you who have been involved in football for so many years, you would have seen how mental illness would have even affected even some of your footballers as well. When I say your footballers, I'm talking about footballers in Grenada.
Yes, and it has a lot to do with something bothering that person, something, and they literally trip off or whatever, and it's so sad. But when that happens, do we, including me, go to the social worker or go to the appropriate department and say, Tom Jones, something seems to happen to Tom Jones? No. We all dismiss it and say, well, he gone off. But what are we doing? It is this program and programs like these that I'm saying we have to try to get a level of consciousness. We have to educate people, educate myself, that it is matter that once somebody doesn't seem to be normal, we have to find a way. Not a social worker this time. We are the social workers because we are the person getting in contact with that person who needs help, but we just pass and go our way.
Mr. Fox, are you in a position to give an update as to any arrangements being made regarding the plans to have, I think you said you were in discussions with some folks, Randy and others, regarding scholarships for young footballers, young sportsmen and women?
At this point in time, I would say no. I want to reach back. The honest truth, I cannot think, I can't say I'm not thinking properly. My emphasis at this time is hiding from coronavirus. I don't go out. I don't, I'm in America, but I could have been anywhere else. I could have been in jail, as a matter of fact, because as I was in jail as a prisoner and in jail as a commissioner. And when I talk about being in jail, I talk about as a prisoner, all right? As a detainee, as a prisoner. Things I buy it on Amazon. I don't go to the stores. I don't go anywhere. And I just can't wait to reach home. And I want to believe my state of mind at the present time would make it very difficult. I have contacted these forces, these people like Dr. Glean and others, that this is what the rest of my life is going to be, trying to help others. I feel extremely good when I see people from, as I said, people who, quote unquote, might not have made it. And the difference the scholarship, the university education made to their lives and their family lives, I really feel is something that we have to go on with. And when I talk about we, I'm talking about the people who benefited from it together with the people on the ground. We have to able to pursue it.
So in the interim, what are you advising those youngsters who may have intentions of gaining scholarships? It's challenging times now, even with classes, even with probably the opportunities that are available. And as you indicated, there's so many uncertainties. We do not know what is in store come 2021. And especially where the scholarships are mainly US based, there's some level of uncertainty. But what would you advise those who have intentions?
They sometimes out of evil commit good. Especially in America at this point, the lockdown or close up, it gives the student, the young person, more time to study. And that young person is not like an adult like you or I who have to find out where the next bread coming from or where this. They just have more time to study. I'm in a house now with one of my grandsons, with two nice little children, one school age. And the honest truth is, I rarely find sometimes it's too much schooling he getting. He's always, the mother and the father are always on him doing something, doing this, getting that, reading this, doing this homework. Well, he has like what we are doing now, that's the school. So the teacher always on him, and when he finished there, he had to do this amount of work and that amount of work. And I answer the question in that way. That is what we have to do with our kids in Grenada to be able to get a scholarship. Because unfortunately, a lot of people criticize some of the blokes in Victoria. They are extremely talented. And during the scholarship time, they would have got more scholarships than almost anywhere in the island. It wasn't biased. The young guys in Hurricanes, Brother and Bowser, and the rest of them who were doing the job did an extremely good job technically. But what you have to combine that technical aspect of the game with is a level of education and discipline. Despite Victoria would have got the most from a parish standpoint, much more than St. George's, Victoria also had the highest percentage of dropouts, of people who did not finish the school, of people who went to the universities and came out. And what Brother and Bowser needs is people with the academic, the teacher type, being in on it. When I was doing the scholarship from Fontenoy, I had Desiree Stephen and others, that is the people with the academic side, on it, where we would have done the SAT in Grand Mall and Fontenoy community centers. And these people spoke to the children. So whereas myself and Simo and Sarge and Uncle and these people were doing the football work, we had people doing that work. That people were coming in our classes and passing the SAT. So when they went out to these scholarships, they were prepared academically and technically from a football standpoint. You cannot prepare them on one front, because I'll tell you what, I got a lot of feedback where some of the students were treated as mules. And when I say treated as mules, just to play. In some schools, if you are not reaching the grade, they will take away your scholarship or send you back. So that means you have to study. But there are other schools, the coach is not connected to the academics and he just used the child. So he go and he spent 3-4 years, quote unquote, on a scholarship. And all what he would have doing is playing football for the team and never graduate. You know, and this is what I'm trying to say, is that it's a community situation. It is not just parental, it is a community situation. We have to prepare the guys for the technical side of the scholarship and the academic side of the scholarship, because he must know, he must understand, he or she must understand that this football is a short-term thing. You finish playing football at 30, but you're living up to your 70s and 80s. And what would carry you through is the academics. So if you ask me, the academics is much more important. So that dual academic football have to be hand is in gloves, you know, or gloves cover the hand. That's the way it has to be.
Mm-hmm. And not just in football, I assume other sporting disciplines as well. You like to see that something, you know, being done. And as you indicated, it can't be just like looking upon us an association, but community involvement is the important aspect of it.
When it comes not just the scholarship, the way I live in Fontenoy, and I like that place, God knows how much I like that place. I tend to see every child in Fontenoy as a project of trying to do better, much better than not your forefathers, your parents, you know, because a lot of times the parents didn't have the opportunity. And before me, I might look at the village and I wonder, who was that person in the village that stood up for everyone, that stood up against the odds? And I can't remember anybody, you know. I remember, for instance, when it comes to me, Nimrod Oliver's father, he's now deceased. He was extremely close to me. I would have insisted that I do this and insisted that I do that. And that had a profound impression on my life. You know, maybe to some extent, I piggyback on that and see myself obligated to help others. And I'm helping quite a few others, right? I make people know, why this football that is not that alone. You know, you're going to finish play just now. You're going to finish play just now. And as I said, I still had a number of players who, including Nixon, including Manu, who I was pushing from the academic standpoint and not just the football standpoint. But a young person would always want the flare, the spotlight. But I have been there, and I can tell you that is a two-pronged attack. Yes, I got a soccer scholarship that did not come off because our management in Grenada just didn't do it right. And I've decided that I would do it right. And I've done quite a few the right way. Yeah. I went all in Washington for a scholarship. Come to Grenada, I went to Washington, but by the time we reached there, it was too late. So I didn't get a scholarship. But That is 1974. That's a long time ago.
But how do we ensure, Mr. Folks, that these folks who receive these scholarships through football or through sports in whatever area, that they provide some sort of well, as you indicated, Desiree and others, for how they did in Fontenoy, assisted the young ones. How do you think we can put something where these folks can probably, when they return, they can assist others in ensuring that there's some level of continuity in those programs?
Okay, you would want that to happen. You would want that to happen. People like Desiree went and came back. People like Kitwana stay in America. And the great bulk of people tend to stay in America. They tend to stay out there. But what you would need are, like myself, what you call counselors, people who are seeing beyond their noses. They are the ones that have to do it. And those who inherited or they benefited from it, it'll be nice for them to come and get it done. Because I know once we start, I have Dr. Glean in the United States, and I have Desiree at home. And I'm very, very confident with these two people, at least these two people, we can get something done. Because in the middle of these two people would be me, who is on the playing field, giving the advice, close to the family, whatnot. Randy outside there would be getting it done. It's like what Marlon Glean is also doing. But Marlon Glean is outside there getting it done. But he also needs someone at home, not just one. The person who is recruiting the talent and the person who is guiding that talent to SAT standard or whatnot. Too many people want scholarships, but they think it's only on a football front. The good schools will make sure and ensure that you meet the required standards academically before you can pursue the technical side. It's a marriage between the two.
Yeah. What's about, and I'm glad you mentioned the technical side as well too, because over the years we have had some very what will we say, successful local coaches. But I think you made the point too that the need for our local coaches to go beyond just coaching locally, but the hope that they can go and coach, probably whether it's at St. Vincent or St. Lucia, or coach outside of Grenada, coach in the region, because many times we have our coaches coming from outside, coming in, and we don't have our coaches being able to go out and coach. So, Mr. Fox, in picking back on what you said in our last interview, in terms of ensuring that our local coaches move to the next level, just as how we have our track and field coaches, for example, who have level 1, level 2, whatever levels they have, and in some instances are qualified, accredited, to coach outside of Grenada. How do you intend, or you hope rather, because you're no longer president, you're no longer looking to be president, you're no longer vying for any leadership level in the GFA, Well, I see you smiling. Let me just say, hopefully, but no, on a serious note though, how do you think that we should be going about ensuring that there are more local coaches and football in this regard that can not just coach a Fontenoy, Hurricane, or Queen's Park Rangers, for example, but can coach Grenada, can coach probably Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and others?
Okay. As far as the coaching is concerned, it's very similar. I want to take off my hat to the Athletic Association in Grenada and the amount of progress they would have made. I don't want to mention Avida and forget Charlie or forget. So I want to do the entire Athletics Association. I think they have done a tremendous job when it comes to the scholarships. Now, the football, as everyone knows, athletics in the United States is a bigger product than soccer in the United States. And against that backdrop, you'll have more people not available, more need for athletics. The soccer is one whereby not every school plays soccer, but I think most, if not all schools, do athletics. So the football side of it is one where you have to have contact with the outsider. The people who would have had scholarships, they might be your best contact. But making contact, you could go on the internet and see the schools that play and where they play. And if you have a contact like Marlon Glean, that could tell you this is a good school or that is not a good school or try that school or whatever, it makes it easier to do your work from Grenada. But I suggest also that the people in the football liaise and work with the people in the athletics, because at the end of the day, as young Grenadians, we want to give that opportunity. I think more people have to get involved. As I said, well, once I reach back, I've discussed it with Dr. Glean and contacted a few coaches and some of the people, including Jojo, that would have had benefited from scholarships. He is in football. I spoke to him already, and we'll try to see what we can do. I'm going to be the person on the ground, right? I'm going to be the person on the ground in Grenada, and they are the people, the contact people up here. And I would find, even other than this, I would find the people to assist with the academic work. As I said, we in Fontenoy, we used to do SAT. These are things that we could resurrect and give other people a break.
Mm-hmm. You have quite a lot to do when you return to Grenada, Mr. Folks. Is returning to administration of football in Grenada on your list?
I'm not going to compete. As I said, I've never really lost the election. I remember there was a time in an election, Dr. Maguire, again, God knows why, he would have won the election, but then after I came back and I won the election, and as I said, even Jack Warner tried to get me out and he couldn't get me out, because would you believe that the teams in the country voted for me more than the teams in town? Yeah. Don't talk about St. Patrick's and the East or the West St. Patrick's. No. What they saw is that I used to leave and come and coach them, their respective teams, and try to assist them with their respective teams. I haven't changed. Because, as I've said, no use to go over it again. What I experienced in my life, in growing up in a family of 11, nice, 11 children, that's a lot. What I experienced there, I don't want anyone to experience it. And it's coincidentally, Chris and my neighbors, they also have 11 children, and I know how difficult it is when you have that amount of siblings and you have to, especially for the parents. My parents were a single mom and had to go through that. I really wish I could continue for quite a while to assist the community. And as I said before also, it is not just Fontenoy and Grand Mall and Cherry Hill, my immediate community. It is beyond. I asked some of the people in the program, when we had the program, to identify people as long as they live in Grenada. And we had people from St. Patrick's, we had people from all over. And this is what I'm trying to do, or hoping to do again.
The question again, Mr. Folks. Any plans by Mr. Ashley Folks to be directly involved in football administration, even at the level of the GFA?
I have never, and I would never turn my back on GFA or what's the situation. At this point in time, I really believe that I could assist, whether it is Chenny or Tom or Dick, because the biggest problem they all have, including Chenny, is that, boy, we did all that to Ram, and Ram is still there without bitterness. Nice. That's the reality. As I said, Patrick and Chenny connived with Jack or whoever they connive with, and quote unquote illegally remove me. But what you find is that they want to chop off each other's neck, whereas the same Ram is extremely close to both of them. We correspond, we do this, we do that. Now, I've liaised with Chenny, and within the football ranks, he doesn't have the support he would like to get. He would get it from me, because I'm not quote unquote supporting Chenny. I'm supporting Grenada football. I want to support Grenada football. If I feel it is going in the wrong direction, I would criticize it. It doesn't have to be Ram Folks is the president. There are a lot of clubs. If you ask them, no, you have to be Ram Folks. You have to be Ram Folks. You don't have to be Ram Folks. You follow? I would support anybody that I feel, quote unquote, is progressive and want the football in that direction. I can tell you for sure, I am not out of football yet. No, I'm not out. But to be president, you don't always have to be at the top to help. I would help with Grenada football. I will always help with Grenada football. A lot of people see it that when Ram is there, we get progress. That happened because when I was there on the 2 occasions in the history of this country that we reached Shell Cup final, once in Jamaica, once in Barbados against Trinidad, I was president. One of the times I was coach. You follow? And I still maintain, I still believe we can reach those heights if you give priority, a lot of priority towards the players and not towards retaining power or whatnot. Put emphasis on the preparation of the team. I do not believe I'm a strong opponent to some extent, though strong, of taking in outside coaches. You know, I believe prepare your coach, because we all have a culture that any foreign coach has to get accustomed with. So that foreign coach, if he comes there, they have more knowledge, maybe, whatnot. He has to work along with a local coach that you are hoping to take over. I did that with Nixon. Yes, I did that with Nixon. As I said, when we went Jamaica in that final, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars preparing the team. But would you believe the team didn't have a coach? No, the team didn't. And we reached the Shell Cup final. Nixon was the captain. I was the president. And 2 of us was sufficient to make that team into a winning team. Yeah. So when the situation arose and Jack on my back, I didn't go Jamaica. Unfortunately, it must have been very difficult for Nixon to be central defender, captain, and coach. And if that could have been, we could have achieved it with that. If we have a better organization, a more supportive organization where you have a coach, you have a captain, and the roles are clear, we should and could do better.
But it's also considered that your tenure as president of the GFA was one of controversial. And, you know, arguably so, some people will push that as what probably may have been the downfall of the Ram folks in football. What do you say about that?
Well, let me answer the last one first. There has never been a downfall of Ram folks. Jack Warner and his bandits removed me from office. If there was a downfall, I would have lost the election. He came with all gifts and whatnot, and he was confident that a vote of no confidence I'll get left. I did not lose even a vote of no confidence. I did not lose a vote of no confidence. I was removed from office without a vote after winning the votes at the local level. And as I said, what Trinidad is doing now, that is what my family and friends didn't want me to go through, because at the end of the day, they say you're going to lose, not lose. FIFA going to put who they want to put. So I did not. The young guns, Jenny and Budu, my two friends, they wanted power. They're cutting each other's throat right now. But having said that, I would support both of them to support Grenada football. So I did not lose an election. You would find history would show the Grenadian people, or there are people in Grenada would want power at any cost. Nice. And I want to answer this. Controversial. Am I controversial? I call a spade a spade. I say what I think is fair, and I don't have, quote unquote, any favors. And I'm afraid anybody. So when I discuss that, and I feel this is the way to go, I'm not looking at the polls. No, I'm not looking at the polls. If you tell me anyone would come and say, Ram, you would have done this to that person, which is not fair. Bascom and you, the listeners, in my entire life, I cannot remember maliciously doing something that I know is wrong to hurt somebody, as opposed to what is right to help the person. Let the chips fall where they may. I try to do what I think is fair. That is why they will call me controversial. I would support this person in that because I think it's right. But you listen now, what would be controversy? That person is not popular. So the crowd don't like that person or that position. But I have analyzed it, being very analytical, and I support that. What they have to do, forget the word controversy, and let's simplify it and do what is wrong or what is right for the organization. I have never, ever taken a position that I think would not benefit the organization. If the great majority feels, for whatever reason, it's not this way, then it's somewhat unfair to say I'm controversial, unless you have to change the meaning of that word. One, you just ask any one of them, Paul Roberts or any one of them, because as I said, Paul is my good friend, but he was just to break up. In one area that Ram took a position that was not fair. There are things that are right and things that are wrong, but generally, I tend to go along with things that are fair to people, especially the ordinary people. So controversy, I said, not guilty.
But are you still bitter with Jack Warner?
If you hear me speak about Jack Warner, the first thing I would say, and I've said it for the day, he's someone with a lot of intelligence. He stood his ground, he whatnot. They say he's corrupt. I believe he's corrupt. But the biggest problem with Jack Warner is that he is dictatorial. He wants you, it's like Trump, to support what he is saying and what he is doing, or else you're going to fall by the wayside. And this is not me. As I said, I call a spade a spade. And when he's wrong, I mentioned it last time, there was a meeting in Guadeloupe or somewhere. And I remember the Jenkins or one of them. For whatever reason, he had this thing against Jenkins. And he wanted to put out the island, Antigua, it was, yeah. And I stood up because I found it to be unfair. This is something personal with you and Jenkins. It has nothing to do with Antigua and football. And I spoke out against it. And people were afraid to vote against, because it was a vote of hands at that time. People were afraid to vote after my presentation, which was different from Jack's own, and that's where Jack got problem, is that I should support him. I thought he would have done quite a bit for football. He's doing quite a bit, especially, as I said, when you go to the international forum. He held his own at any level. Very intelligent man. Nice. But he has that dictatorial side to him. And I'll tell you what other people might not have seen or felt that I felt. A lot of times, even in our small community in the Caribbean, Tom Jones believes he know more than you because he's from a bigger island than you. And whenever I feel that, whenever I suspect that, you and I ain't go together for long. I thought at times Jack treated the smaller islands as, you ain't no man. You understand? But the brain of someone born in a smaller island has nothing to do with size and intelligence. And we do that a lot. He come from the United States, so he knows more than you. We do that a lot. I cannot concede to that, and you know.
Do you agree, Mr. Folks, that there has been a ceasefire in the GFA? We know of some time ago there has been this competing media conferences from this side and that side. Or do you think that the COVID-19 has just put a pause on that?
Well, I might answer direct and then explain. I think the COVID-19 has a lot to do with it. That people are more interested in the COVID-19, you know, how we handle the COVID-19. But I'll tell you what, one of the groups, and subject to correction, but I don't think there is much room for correction, it was the riding partners, Cheney and Boodoo, that eventually broke links. And one group was Cheney, and the other group was Boodoo. Nice, Patrick. Both groups, both groups approached me. Both groups approached me to support them. And I told them, not because of revenge or anything like that. I said, division in football, we would have had enough. And I beg you all, ask both of them, I beg you all to come together. That's the only way the football could go forward. Yes, you and Jack remove Ram. But I still maintain the football need people who care. Somebody might say Cheney and care, I don't know. Somebody might say Boodoo would not have cared. But a lot of people want quote unquote power. I don't know what is that power when it comes to football. My side of power in football is to empower young people to reach the heights of their potential. If we could get scholarships, if we could get professional contracts, if we could make the football more entertaining, and that's what we have to do. But for I to be traveling and going to this meeting and going to that meeting, when I was president, some of my executive members used to travel. I didn't always used to travel. When I was president, I did not go to Jamaica, even though we reached the finals. Yes, that would have had a lot of strains, and I have to manage this. Can you imagine Grenada? I'm the president. Grenada playing a final in Jamaica. Ram pay for the team, hundreds of thousands of dollars for everything. And Ram didn't go. Because at the end of the day, it is Grenada football and never, ever was about me. And that, think about it, that is controversial. But how you could be paying for the team to travel and you didn't buy a ticket for yourself? That is crazy. So it's things like that when you're talking about Ram. That's why I could come here now and talk. And people would go and write things after, which cannot hold. You know, it cannot hold because I am who I am.
So to bring clarity to that, you're saying that you spent thousands of dollars of your own money in sending the team to participate, all because of some issue regarding Grenada getting its funds. And you yourself, as a person who was spending the money, didn't even buy a ticket for yourself to go with the team, right?
I'm telling you, before the team went, Jack Warner wanted to get me out, and he was convinced he's going to hold his purse. So there was no money from FIFA, from CONCACAF, from CFU coming to Grenada. They basically had that, what you would call it, that squeeze where without funds, nothing would happen. He will have to resign. And I laugh, I laugh. I say, wow, he crazy. So I was paying the salaries of the staff, paying the salaries of the people in the office, bought the tickets for every member of the team, give them the stipends and whatnot, and stay in Grenada to fight Jack. And it cost hundreds of thousands for that few months. It was quite a few months. But there is no way I could have sat back and not allow the team, after the support they would have given me, how good they were playing, not to go Jamaica. And at the time, why didn't I go? I thought I was the central person making things happen. And it was easier, much, much easier for me to navigate the Football Association at the time from home than from Jamaica. A lot of times, especially African leaders, they go away, and when they come back, they're not in government, they have to hide, or they have to stay in oblivion somewhere. It might not be that I go Jamaica, and then by the time I reach, somebody else in the office and whatnot. And I tell you, as I said before, they came after they eventually voted me out in Argentina. They came with a what should I call it? I had to call it almost a scam, where they're looking for corruption. Where they start screening right, left, they look at every book. If they found corruption, it would not have been me. It cannot have been me, the person I am, What do I need? What do I need more than what I have to be corrupt? I don't know,
There's a comment that, Mike, there is what I will call a low-intensity conflict going on, even as of now. And Thompson Kado is saying low-intensity conflict. So there is still something brewing within the GFA, right?
It was so high. It was so high maybe a year ago, just over a year ago, where the president, Cheney, does not have, I'm talking about a year ago, I don't know what it is right now, does not have the support of the entire executive. And the executive, when I was president, is not geographically the same as it is now. The executive now represents a lot of geography, a lot to do with where you live and who represent what and who represent what. I don't necessarily like that at all. I think the football community is not that broad and intensive to not know somebody. So let's take, for instance, St. Patrick, any modern parish. Your representative has to be from the parish. So why the 7-8 people on the executive cannot represent a small country as Grenada in the best interest of football? Let me assume you have 14 Ram folks. How the executive is going now? Who make that constitution something wrong? You have 14 people like Ram folks with the background, the knowledge, and what I would call the integrity. Some people know how to think it. You only could pick one of those, and then you go for somebody who doesn't care, because that one person is from, quote unquote, I hate to say I'm from St. George's, from Point. That one person is from Point, and Point St. George's only has to be represented by one person. So when you reach Guave, you have to get somebody from Guave. But that person from Guave don't study football. I'm just making the point. But you still have to get that person. It is something in the Constitution that I believe you have all the clubs. They would know who doing the best for football. As I have said, my strongest support was from St. Patrick's, St. John's, the country area, especially St. Patrick's, St. David's, St. Patrick's, stronger than it was in St. George's, because they know I spent time with them. So that new side of the Constitution, it is funny, very, very, very funny. And it is not like the politics. For instance, the politics in Grenada, we have constituencies. And the constituency dealing with everybody. The football might just be dealing with a team, one team. So therefore, the person who is doing the island-wide work with all the teams, the 10 teams will just decide. If they decide that the person they want is from their village, so be it. But they should not be forced to only vote for somebody in their village. If the person in their village is good enough and care about football enough, then vote for the person. So that's kind of funny.
That's as a tactician, I think you still know how to win an election, I should say. And probably another hint, even though you haven't directly said about your direct involvement, there is a hint there that you may get involved. Lincoln Toro Deputy is saying, be careful what you say about Jack Warner. He's my boy for sizing up all the thievery at FIFA. All the white boys getting rich. Jack decided as a black man, he goes share in the loot.
Oh, God. You know that, it's like a confusion,
Yeah.
But Toro is my boy. Toro is my boy. Yeah. And FIFA, even post Jack, after Jack, is a whole set of thieves. And what Toro's saying, that might just be true. It's everybody. You check after Jack, you have seen so much presidents right now. I think I read something last week or something where they're accusing this one of doing that, and that one is a lot of money. They have more money than they could spend. That is the reality.
Well, in fact, I sent you a link earlier today regarding one involving the former, I think it was the former General Secretary, Jerome Valk, and others.
I tell you,
yeah,
it's ongoing. It is ongoing. I can't say it's contagious because I never got involved, even though I sat with some of them, and I happen to know, sometimes corruption, unfortunately, the people who really need, the hungry people, they don't have access to material things to be corrupt. The people who have so much, they want more. I kneel down every night. What I'm saying here is honest God truth. I kneel down every night, not some nights, every night, and pray that I should have the means to support people who need help, monetary and otherwise. Because I honestly believe, I know, and I honestly believe I'll be fair. I'll go out and help people. What do I need more money for Ram folks for? Tell me, to do what? Buy another vehicle? Buy this? Build another house? Make more money? I believe, I know there are a lot of people in my community, the community of Grenada, the wider community of Grenada, who need help and cannot get it. Who need help, and those who have not seen them. And it's against that background. I want to be empowered with money, with the means to help ordinary people. Yeah.
Mr. Folks, the issue of the, and I'm just looking at the time with 5 more minutes remaining there on the program. I wanted us to just look on the issue of the October 1983. I know we touched on it just briefly at the start, but after 37 years, do you think it's time that Grenadians get to know the real truth about the events of October 1983? That's one. And two, whether you believe that October 19th should be a day of remembrance and reflection for Grenadians rather than October 25th?
I'll tell you something about the truth. In the Grenada context, the truth is what you want to believe. I would come out and give the God truth. And those who opposed that period would not believe. Or not just would not believe in it. They would believe what Joel said. What Joel said about the bones that might have been there hundreds of years, and it might just have been the indigenous people of this country. And he put it towards 1983. And there are others who hate, like the journalists who lyingly attacked me. If you put it the other way, he will see 1 and 1, add 1 and 1 and get 11. So unfortunately, I have conceded that the March 13th, 79 to 83 is a period where you would not be able to reconcile. Those of us who has this view and those of us who has that view, I can tell you that my view, my position, my participation, I take God to witness that what I'm saying is a God truth. The God truth. Strike me dead if anything that I would have said is not the truth. And there are people who would say, boy, what I'm saying is the truth, but I can't handle that. I remember once, who was it, boy? The person told me, Ram, I know you. I believe what you're saying, but I'm not accepting it. And that is what would happen. It doesn't make sense. I reached to a stage that there are some people that believe or they know all what went wrong in Grenada happened between 1979, March 13th, and October 1983. And you cannot change them. They are closed off. Bascom, what we have to do is to ask ourselves whether people really want to listen. No, they are not prepared to listen. So it doesn't make sense. This generation would die. And the history, the honest history, the true history of our country would not be written. Would not be written. And that is one of the unfortunate things. If we look at it constructively, we might see where mistakes were made, or this shouldn't happen and this wouldn't. But the bad things about Grenada was discovered in 1979, and the history, full stop, mark, period mark, was in 1983. No debate on anything else. So when you have people like that, I don't know. I am open to debate at any time. But once it's going into conflict of lies, where lies, I believe in any argument, in any debate, when somebody has to come up with a lie, it shows that they have surrendered. Trust me. When you're coming up with a lie, you have to feel sorry for that person that have to lie and mislead in order to get their point across. I have never, I would never lie when it pertains to that. If I feel at any time in 1983, any time between 79 and 83 that I would have done anything wrong, and I'm not saying I'm infallible, I would put up my two hands and say, look, it's wrong. One of the things in 1983, I could tell you, in the invasion, I might have said it before, but it's good to say it again. I know I didn't do any wrong. I was talking to both of my leaders all the time. And when the unfortunate incident happened, and I was incarcerated, and my father died, and they were refusing me to go home or whatever, to go to, even to the funeral. I was willing to go to the funeral and come back. But my father died, and I want to believe I being in jail is part and parcel of he worrying too much. And my father died, and I would make application to go to the funeral. When I was commissioner, any prisoner died, I allowed them to go to the funeral. And when they refused me, I decided to go on a hunger strike. And when I tell you I'm going on a hunger strike, I'm dying, That's well, all right, I go and I'm not eating. And when they realize I'm serious, a few days, they send a counselor to me. They send the counselor, take me out of the cell, bring me in the office, about 5 or 6 high-level thing there. And they say, look, we have looked. They even show me. We have looked at some of your reports, because as chief of personnel security, I was involved. I was not just involved, I was chief of Bernard Code security and chief of Maurice Bishop security, and would have advised both leaders on their security aspect, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, when go to rally, when do this and what. And they show me a lot of the reports, because I had all those documents that I would have written to my respective leaders and said, you have been very instrumental in getting across the right ideas to your leaders. However, we have done work in your village and realized that you are a threat. You would be a threat to us if you go out in the village. We don't have the control of the country as yet. And allowing someone like you, who we realize up to now doesn't accept our presence, would be problem. But don't kill yourself, because there is nothing except admiration towards what you have done. I came off of the hunger strike and I just playing it cool. When they felt they had enough control and whatnot, I was released without charge. Other people got charged and spent 20-something years in jail. And that's who I am. I always believe, allow yourself the truth to guide you. What you believe in, stand forth. Don't follow any crowd. I didn't follow any crowd, and I had a lot of people, a lot of close friends who were taking different positions. My intellect, or lack of it, would always allow to guide my action, and that's what I do. If I feel this is wrong, who could get me to do it? No. If I feel it's especially wrong against people, unfair, let's call it. Right and wrong is a different something, but fair and unfair, that's who I am. That's where I am.
Mm-hmm. What's about October 19th? Mm-hmm. I asked you the question about whether October 19th should be set aside as a day for national reflection, and
Yeah, I think to a great extent, the both days, all right? There are people who see October 25th as Liberation Day, okay? I don't see it as Liberation Day, period, all right? But I see October 19th as a day of mourning for Grenadians. Think about it. The Prime Minister died, and a number of people died on that day. And we cannot, up to now, have a reflection to mourn and have prayer meeting for the deceased, because I know when it comes to death and church go together. You had to have, quote unquote, a prayer and whatnot, and the person having a funeral. So if we have lost, or having lost on that day, this amount of Grenadians in the leadership, I still believe, strongly believe, very, very strongly believe, we should have a day of mourning or a day of respect or a day of reflection on that day. If you want to have a day of celebration on the 25th, you go along with that. I don't participate in that. And even if I go to government, which I would not participate in that. But I would gladly participate in a day of mourning when, unfortunately, so much of our leadership, historical leadership, died.
Okay, then, and I would like to invite folks that, there is a document from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was done many years ago. It's over 300 pages, 350 something pages, and I think it's a worthwhile document to read because it captures the the feedback from many individuals. I think yourself is also included to some extent. I don't know if they spoke to you directly, but I saw they mentioned it a couple of times, Mr. Folks, and where they spoke to a number of people who would have been affected, even statements from the Grenada 17 at the time, etc. But it has quite a number of issues that it raised, including the pathologist at this then St. George's University, the ambassador, U.S. ambassador in Barbados, and a number of officials they spoke to, and they just put the information in the document, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission document, over 300 pages, but quite a lot. Otway, Bailey, Lacroix, all these folks that they spoke to, Alimenta Bishop when she was alive, and all these. One other issue I want us to, well, not an issue, but I see a comment that came in there from, let's go to Deputy first. Truth in Grenada is subjective. Opinions are not truth, but can lead to truth. Even if truth presented with clarity is laid out openly, acceptance will be far and in between. Asking the wrong people for truth about the remains is cloaked in hypocrisy, knowing we are seeking answers from the wrong perpetrators. Very important point there, Clive. I like the issue about asking truth from the wrong persons.
Let me ask that. But okay. The question is, how would you know if it's the wrong person? The problem there, as he said, acceptance of truth is according to which side you're on. Nobody coming to me on the other side to ask me about something, because if I tell them the truth, they wouldn't accept it. You follow? And one thing I can tell them is that whatever I'm saying would be the truth. I'm not afraid of anybody. I've always said the truth. I take pride in saying what I'm saying now, that I don't lie. I don't have to. I'm afraid of anybody. I'm afraid of anything. And I say what I have to say. I've always said it.
I put it up for you to see.
Removal, what that is?
Well, I assume the removal of the bodies.
Well, if they have, listen to me. And I want everybody to listen to that. The aspect of, quote unquote, the execution, the removal of the bodies, I was not there. I was not even close to it. So I would have to listen to what happened in that period. But prior to that, starting from up Mount Welldale, the removal of, or not removal, Comrade Bishop coming out of the building and whatnot, and in the building during that period of under house arrest, I was in charge. I could tell you everything. That is when I could dispute that this happened or that didn't happen. Like when, for instance, people are saying that he was beaten, he was this, he was that, forget that. I was there. I was in charge there. When they came to remove him, to take him and go, all during that period, I was there. I was chief of personal security, chief of Morris Bishop, personal security and Bernard Code, personnel security. Talk to me about those areas. I can tell you what it is. As towards the incident of execution, I was not on the fort even at that time. I was not there. I was left up in, because I had the responsibility of my camp, personal security. And I just thought that after they went with Bishop, the military, they would have had the authority to ask the personal security, the rest of us, let's go in a safe place. Let's come together rather than still being in different camps here and there, because personal security could not have withstood an attack by the population. No, we were never these big armed groups. We protected our ministers primarily with pistols and things like that. So when it reached to that open, quote unquote, warfare, we had to go under the cloak of the protection of the army. And against that background, we went up to the fort, not fort, what we call Rupert, nice.
Fort Frederick?
Yeah, we went up to Fort Frederick because you want to galvanize everybody together. And I stayed in my corner right there, and whatever happened then down on the other fort, I really don't know. I just had to listen to what people say.
We have one other point that came in there that I wanted to share with you regarding from Adrian Spaceman Mitchell. Hi, Ram, glad to see and hear from you. I think that one of your greatest contributions to Grenada sports was your work in the expansion of our playing fields, Progress Park. Then there was St. David, St. John, but St. David and others. Mm-hmm. Thank you for all you did.
Oh, Lord, so nice to have Space speaking to. Spaceman. Spaceman is one of those good, repeating, good become a recurring decimal. Good human being in this country named Grenada. Spaceman in a broader community than Fontenoy or Granmore or Cheryl. He has been to St. Patrick's, total St. Patrick's and the island as a whole, what I have been and doing in Fontenoy, in my small area. I respect him to the bone. Space, I respect him to the bone. I used to be in his house. We used to be here. We used to be there. When he fell sick, I was up there with him, whatnot. He was minister, sport minister of this, and I was always there with him. Go to his campaign, go to this. Good human being. We still are good people in the country. Thank you, Space.
Yeah, and especially for what he has done with football. Some consider him probably as one who started semi-professional football, in especially with Hard Rock and others, actually.
He has a passion for football like crazy.
Paying the players to play and, to coach.
Yeah, and he will do anything. And it's not just the football. It is the youths in the area. Mm-hmm. Space is that kind of person. We have good people among us. Trust me, Space is one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then. Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Folks, for spending time with us. Hopefully you were able to dish out all that you had to. And I know the whole issue of the issue of October 19, that period of October 1983 will still be, fresh in the minds of quite a few, as, Clev was actually saying that it was not Fort Rupert, but Camp Calavini after the invasion, and he made reference to the pictorial archives that, that will answer those questions. And again, from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, it indicated that quite a number of persons, including those the pathologists from the St. George's University, spoke about the Americans came with body bags, The Americans left with body bags, sorry. They left Grenada, they returned, quite a number of things. In fact, what they did, they put all the information there for one to read. After speaking with all these, people, whether it's from the, the St. George's University, because as they said, they brought things for them to look at. And in one case, there were dresses. Obviously, a female have to be wearing a dress, So there were, areas where they concluded that there could have been the remains of certain people, even though they were not able to do actual identification. But again, the pathologists were saying that the Americans were in total control of everything. They brought things, they laid it out there for them, they did what they have to do, gave them the information, they left with whatever they had to do. Then they spoke to the undertakers, Lockwood and Sons, Otway. They spoke to former soldiers themselves. The late Bowen, for example, from Dabo. His name is also in it, although he gave conflicting, reports on certain things. But again, I'm saying it's an opportunity for Grenadians to read. I think that document has been there for quite a while. They did quite an extensive work speaking to the family members of quite a few, And again, I'm saying it's an opportunity. And I hope that someday, Mr. Folks, that we'll be able to put this thing to rest once and for all. If the South Africans have done it, why Grenadians can't do it?
But Grenadians, we are very stubborn people. I'm not too sure outside of our generation it would be done. But I just want to say thanks very much. And I want to say that the last time we spoke, this journalist came with a whole pack of lies. I did not answer because I didn't want it to be a to and fro. I didn't want it to be like that. And again, everything I've said here is the honest truth. And if the journalist or any journalist want to dispute it, I'm sorry, you would not get my response.
Okay, well, thanks. And it has been a pleasure, folks. I know we go way back when, and I appreciate you coming back on the program and sharing your insights. And hopefully that everything goes well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay then.
See you soon.
Okay then. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Ashley Ram Folks, Folks, I'm saying, and he's Mr. Folks, speaking to us, covered lots of issues regarding football, Grenada football, regional football, his issues with the CFU, CONCACAF, FIFA, well, at the time, Jack Warner, we will say, how it has played out also with the Trinidad Tobago Football Association, the TTFA, and what has really happened with them. And then, covered the issues regarding the reaction to some comments that were made the last time, as he indicated, journalists, making some comments, and he is actually challenging the journalists. And then, obviously, the October 1983 period also dealt with that as well. So, folks, well, once again, thank you for viewing, and don't forget to join us on Thursday for another program. Starts at 6:30 p.m., which I think will be 7:30 p.m., Grenada time. I think there's a change of time come on Sunday. Well, we'll indicate that there's a 1 hour difference. So on Thursday, we'll have a 1 hour difference in terms of time. So, and then next Saturday, we hope to have another program. Until then, you stay positive and you test negative.